For those of you that don't know me, I am Assemblyman Chris Tague, and I approve this message. First of all, I just want to acknowledge our leader, our great leader of the Republican Conference. Will Barkley's here with us. He may have to step out, but can't thank the leader for his support and leadership, especially on issues like this. So, leader, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this morning. And I know Senator Ort was feeling a little under the weather today, but he is also very, very supportive. And, of course, we have Senator Borrello here representing the Senate Republicans. So, anyways, good morning. And let me be direct. This bill is nothing less than an attack on New York's family farms. It's written by people who have never milked a cow, never walked a pasture, and never once asked how the milk gets into their morning latte. However, they sure seem ready to tell us how to run our farms. Capping a farm at 700 cows is not just arbitrary, it's ignorant. It punishes efficiency, it punishes innovation, and worst of all, it punishes family farms who are trying to survive. 94% of the farms in the state of New York are family-owned, and many already surpass this random made-up number while successfully meeting the state's regulations of herd, land, and product management. Our farmers are some of the hardest-working, dedicated people in this country. They already face crushing regulations, rising costs, and labor shortages. And now, some of our friends from New York City want to handcuff their futures. This isn't about the environment. It's not about safety. It's not about the treatment of animals. It's about extreme and ignorant ideology by uninformed individuals. If you care about local food, local jobs, and the survival of not only upstate New York, but all of New York, you need to care about this. Excuse me. And let me be clear. If you've never walked a mile in a farmer's boots, don't try to write the rules for the people who feed you. As I mentioned, this bill is introduced by people who have never, ever milked a cow. In fact, the only thing that these people have ever milked is the taxpayers of the state of New York. This may be one of the most ridiculous bills that I have ever seen in my almost 9 years here in the state legislature. Unbelievable. Unbelievable that they would waste the time of the taxpayers and the time of both houses to even bring a bill like this to committee. Just unbelievable. It's really my honor right now to introduce my partner and the ranking member of the Agriculture Committee in the State Senate, my good friend and partner, Senator George Borrello.
Thank you, Assemblyman Tague. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I am proud to be the ranking member of the Senate Agriculture Committee, representing thousands of farms across the 57th Senate District. But Chris and I and everybody you see behind us, we are the firewall that stands between the food security and safety of New Yorkers and the radical ideas that come out of New York City. And just when you think you've seen every radical idea that's possible out of New York City, holy cow, they've come up with a new one. I see that was Miller maybe doing. But with that being said, what are we talking about here? We're not talking about changing anything, really. The demand for dairy products will be there. The question is, will they be supplied by New York farmers and family farms across New York State? If this bill were to ever become reality, we would just shift those to other states, states that don't have the same standards when it comes to, the humane treatment of animals, responsible and farming, sustainable farming. That's what happens here in New York. That's what our family farmers do. It's good for the environment and it's good for their business. But we're going to force these folks out and force those cows to just be relocated to other states. But New York is a dairy state. We are the third largest dairy state in the nation. Just in my district, we have a brand new state-of-the-art cheese-making facility, Great Lakes Cheese. That facility, which employs 500 people, also employs about 60,000 dairy cows every single day. 60,000 cows, 7 days a week, supply milk just to create cheese at Great Lakes Cheese. What's going to happen to those farmers, to those dairy cows, to that facility? The billions of dollars that have been invested, that's what's going to happen. We're going to drive them out. Now look, if my colleagues from Manhattan and Brooklyn would like to limit the amount of dairy cows in Manhattan and Brooklyn, feel free. But to do it in the agriculture areas of New York State that are the economic engine for the state is irresponsible. Now I realize that, they've got a lot of radicals in their districts, they've got a lot of crazy people that they need to throw some red meat to once in a while, but bad ideas in Albany are like a busy airport. They circle the airport, but eventually they come in for a landing here in Albany. And that's the problem. We need to stay diligent on this. We need to make sure that this or no other version of it becomes law here in New York State, because we've seen crazier things happen, sadly, here in New York. So with that, let's hear from a real dairy farmer, someone who actually knows what it's like. It's my honor to introduce Ray Dykeman from Dykeman Brothers Farms here in the Capital Region.
So to say I'd be more comfortable planting corn right now would be an understatement. But I want to thank Assemblyman Chris Tague and Senator George Borrello and everybody here that supports dairy farming in New York State. Chris has always been a great friend and actually a fellow farmer. I milk 1,500 cows on one dairy in Montgomery County, and then on a second dairy in Montgomery County, we milk about 600 cows. The second dairy that we started was basically to encourage people into the field of agriculture. Sometimes I don't know if that was a mistake or not, and I think to say that I'm a frustrated dairy farmer in New York State would be an understatement. I don't understand how a bill like this even gets remotely this far. You can't keep dictating the expenses on these farms and then limiting their income as you go forward. And I know a lot of you probably don't like hearing about the family farm. I don't know any dairy farm that is the big corporate dairy farm that you all speak of. I don't know of one. Why are these family farms important to this state? This collection of family farms is the largest industry in the state. Milk is their main commodity, or their number one commodity, is also the number one commodity in this state, supersedes the next 10 combined. They are also one of, if not the largest employer in the state. Why would we support that industry? I don't know. Most of them are doing that with a single-digit return on investment. All you got to do is Google it. The top 130 farms in this state return between 5 and 8%. The average return in this state is 0%. There's a lot of farms that are doing this for almost no return. I know these farms aren't big corporate farmers because they wouldn't do it for that kind of return. As you lay more and more of these foolish bills on us, there's going to be more and more of us going out of business. I actually have made the decision with my family to downsize my farms going into the future. I don't see a good light at the end of the tunnel with things like this that keep popping up. I just think that as we go forward, the large corporation farms will eventually take over, and they're going to make your food prices really rise. Where does it all end? I don't know. I know for me and my family, the decision has been made to go the other way. And it's because of bills like this that keep popping up that are going to be the death of this industry in this state as we know it. Now I would like to introduce Allison Jones-Brimmer from NEDPA. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Assemblyman Tague and Senator Borrello, along with many of your colleagues, for your steadfast support of New York's family dairy farms. The Northeast Dairy Producers Association, representing family farms that produce more than half of the state's milk, stands with our partners today to set the record straight with facts. Dairy farmers are the original stewards of the land. They are dedicated to continuous improvement in caring for our environment, our animals, and our communities. Regardless of farm size, 95% of New York State farms are family-owned, and our dairy cooperatives are predominantly owned by those family farms. This clearly makes the claim that New York farms are owned by large corporations unequivocally false. Our multi-generational dairy farms keep investment and benefits in local communities, support other local businesses, and generate tax revenue that stays local. Under the environmental conservation law permit, New York farms follow some of the most rigorous standards and requirements in the country. Our farms are required to hire state-certified third-party professionals to develop nutrient management plans and implement best management practices that help protect our natural resources. And we are fortunate to have Cornell University conducting groundbreaking environmental research and outreach programs. The partnership between New York's dairy farmers, our research institutions, and the state departments of agriculture and markets and environmental conservation serves as a model for other states to follow. Family dairy farms also strive to provide the best care for their cows. Their livelihood depends upon it. They partner with licensed veterinarians and nutritionists to track cow health using the latest technology to ensure that cows are comfortable and healthy. Unfortunately, New York State regulations, workforce shortages, high labor costs, inflation, and other challenges are forcing farms to make difficult decisions to grow, change, adapt, or make the difficult decision to exit the business entirely. Placing a cap on how much a small farm can grow doesn't help them. It only limits their future opportunity for success. Additionally, our farms take pride in providing food for our neighbors across the state, country, and world. We fight food insecurity. In fact, during the pandemic, we gathered and delivered food donations to New York City multiple times. We aim to work collaboratively with legislators across the state to ensure a future that allows New York's family farms to continue to provide for New York's families. New York's dairy community has exciting opportunities ahead. The state is attractive to dairy processors because of our farmers' commitment to animal care, workforce development, and environmental stewardship. For all of these reasons and more, NEDPA adamantly opposes this bill and looks forward to working with stakeholders to ensure our family farms of all sizes can continue to start up, grow, and be successful here in New York State. Thank you, and I welcome David Fisher of New York Farm Bureau to the podium.
Thanks, Allison, and thanks to all from the Senate and the Assembly who are here today. I am David Fisher. I serve as president of New York Farm Bureau, the largest general farm organization. One of the things that keeps coming up is the word factory, and I'll just reiterate what's been said. There is no factory. The F should be replaced with family. We're all family businesses, multi-generational in many cases. In my situation, my sons are the 7th generation to farm for over 200 years in our community. And we're proud of that. And that's just one example. There's many of those across the state. Manure comes up, and I'll talk about the waste. CAFOs, and I've been proud to be part of a work group with DEC for over 30 years, bringing together the environmental community, farmers, and DEC to come up with the best workable plan for environmental stewardship. DEC operates under the EPA Clean Water Permit. It's a general state permit. But you all should know it's more strict than the EPA requires. That brings us to recycling. Many of us have gone to producing digesters with natural gas. We separate the bedding for solids to bed our cows with, which is recycling. We recycle the fertilizer. We use very few inputs to grow crops on our dairy farms, and animal agriculture in general does that. Those things all show how we've grown. As a milk supply, in the last 60 years, we've gone from 11 billion pounds in New York to 16, with opportunity to go much farther. And that's all done with half the number of cows. Cornell recently came out with some data which shows our CO2 emissions per unit of output in New York State have been reduced by over 50% in the last 50 years. That's amazing. That's world class, and some of the best numbers in the world are coming out of New York. And why is that? because we have great farmers, we have a great land grant and extension system, and a great team at Ag and Markets to support us all. And that's why we have over $2 billion in new investments in milk processing coming to New York. It's a market for all, large and small. We can't let anybody be limited. But these new markets will even encourage opportunities for small farms that this group is concerned about more than ever, because we'll have good marketing opportunities. These world-class companies come here because of what we have and the infrastructure we have in New York. They come to where there's good farmers, good research, and infrastructure. We need to continue that and have the opportunities for all of us. We can't let those who don't know rule. Every successful civilization for thousands of years has depended on a resilient agriculture. We need to remember that. Don't let the idealism of the uninformed risk our security in New York, our food security, and national security. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so we're going to close up here. You know, I think one of the most important things, and I think Dave, who operates a large farm in northern New York, and of course Ray, who has a larger farm here, and I, who had a small farm compared to what these folks operate, actually I think herd health and being able to manage the farm is easier when you're milking 1,000 cows or more than it is when you have 150 cows. So, you know, the thinking behind this legislation, like I said before, is just ridiculous. You have people that know nothing about agriculture or the dairy industry trying to make up. That's a lot of the problem here in New York and a lot of different areas. We have people that put together legislation and they have no clue and they don't listen to the people that are actually doing the work. So with that, we're gonna close out this press conference, but we are going to open up to on-topic questions first. If anybody from the press has any on-topic questions. Yes, sir, Alex.
So New York is set to add at least 30% to its demand for fluid milk in the next 5 or 10 years. We've got a bunch of projects coming, including the giant C-Schoharie project in Albany County. How does the state reach that goal, and how does this bill help or hurt reaching that goal of increasing milk?
Well, this bill would hurt that. I'm hoping this bill never sees the light of day, and that's why we're here this morning. I see that there are some folks from the majority that have actually spoke out about this bill in the last couple of days. I'm hoping that there's a bunch more that do, but it would hurt it immensely. You know, and Dave and Ray could probably speak to this better than I, but one of the problems that we have is land. Some of these farms, one of the reasons why I sold my cows years ago was I had to double the size of the herd to be able to survive, but there wasn't enough land in the area for me to continue on to raise the crops that I needed to increase the herd. That's why some of these folks over the years have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. They made a decision. They had family members that wanted to keep the farm going. They wanted to keep the farm going, but the only way they could afford to do that and keep the cash flow going on the farm was to increase the size of the herd. So it would be very detrimental to all the plans that we have in processing and production if this bill were to become law. Did you guys want to add anything on that? Go ahead. You too, George. Dave.
You know, the issue is we spend billions of dollars for economic development, and food processing is one of the biggest things we've done. Like I said, the Great Lakes cheese plant. But what is the message we're sending? And this is just one more nail in the coffin of our agriculture industry. We've already devastated them with the Farm Labor Overtime Bill. You know, we're doing things like canceling natural gas. The HEAT Act is coming up again this week. The message we're sending is don't come to New York. Don't bring your business here. And this is just one more example of how we are discouraging people from growing and relocating to New York State. And we spend a lot of money to do that. So it's counterintuitive, it's working against what is being done to try to save agriculture and every industry here in New York State.
Dave, did you want to say something on that?
Every business to survive has to grow, thrive, reinvest. And so in order to do that, we have to be able to grow. But and this country has depended on cheap food for years. 60 years ago, you could buy a gallon of milk for $1. It's about 4 now, so that's a 4-fold increase. If you look at the rate of inflation, it should be over $10. We've provided the American people a very reasonably priced food supply for years. We've done that by investing in technology and efficiencies along the lines of labor to make a cheaper food supply and to keep costs down. The American people have the lowest, one of the lowest in the world, percent of disposable income goes to food. So I think we need to continue that. We work hard to do that, be better stewards of the land. The proof is in all the numbers that show we've done that, and we'll continue to do that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We just got to have that opportunity to do it. And a lot of that we didn't do with regulation. The more regulation we get, the harder it gets to do what we are supposed to do.
Yeah, I would like to say that, as far as land, like Chris mentioned, we've learned to do more and more with the land that we have so we can produce more crops on less land. The other thing that's amazing about the cow, the most beautiful animal in the world, I've got awards, and I'm sure Dave does too, on my wall from 30 years ago where the cow made 16, 17, 18,000 pounds a year. These cows today make 30, 31, 32,000 pounds a year. We've learned how to take care of these animals better. We've made them more comfortable. We feed them better. And like Chris says, we have become more like this person just strictly feeds calves. This person strictly feeds the cows and takes care of the animals. We've learned how to do this over the years to become phenomenal with these animals. And the cow is the most perfect animal in the world, bar none.
Thank you. My name is Ken Blankenbush. I represent the 117th District, which is the North Country and parts of the Mohawk Valley. I'm just going to talk about one of my counties, Lewis County. Lewis County has about 28,000 in population, small county. It has 56,000 cows. And right in the middle of Lewis County is Kraft Heinz plant. The Kraft Heinz plant has about 500 employees that work there, and they're the ones that make most of the cream cheese in the United States. If they don't get the milk supply, you think a company like Kraft Heinz is going to stay in New York? They could go anywhere, and they will if they don't get the milk supply. We also have a Great Lakes cheese in Jefferson County, plant in Jefferson County too. We have a great agricultural community in the North Country, and this crazy bill will hurt everyone. Not only our farmers, but the way I look at it, what about the 500 people that work at Kraft Heinz? Kraft Heinz isn't going to put up with this stuff. It doesn't have to. It could go anywhere in the United States. So I'm concerned about this, and I hope that it never sees the light of day. Thank you for letting me talk.
We are really excited at NEDPA about the investment that's being made in New York State in dairy processing capacity, and just this week the Dairy Modernization Grant Program was announced, and farms of all sizes are getting support to be able to put new practices and new technologies into place on their farms to be better prepared for providing for their families and continuing on into the future. This bill makes absolutely no sense when looking at all of those investments. We need to allow farmers to grow, adapt, change, put innovations in place. We need to allow researchers to move forward on innovative practices so we can be more efficient. We can continue feeding our neighbors locally, statewide, and around the world in order to make sure we are food secure, we have national security, and that our farmers can continue their livelihoods.
How was that? Did we answer your question, Alex? Any other questions from the press? Yes, ma'am, Jamie.
Senator Brown, you mentioned the New York Heat Act. Is there anything different about the bill this year than in years past?
No, it sucks as much as it did last year, so.
Say about it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I come from Western New York. We have an abundance of natural gas. It heats our homes. It drives our manufacturing economy. it makes electricity. And what this bill will do is it'll basically give the government the indiscriminate ability to just, decommission natural gas. That's still what the bill does. Now, they try to tweak things here and there, but at the end of the day, we are never going to be able to provide the electricity to power everything New York needs. We're talking about data centers, AI. There's just no plan. The bottom line is these are all goals with no plans to achieve the goals. I don't agree with the goal. I think it's a ridiculous goal to begin with. But to not have a plan that in the end is going to have a clock ticking to the devastation of our economy, to our reliable electricity, that's the path that we're on. So the HEAT Act is just another example of how they're trying to feed the beast. The radical folks, usually based in New York City, that are not based in reality. And that's what we're fighting here, and the people behind me are all fighting here, so we can restore common sense to New York State.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
No farms, no food.
That's right. Well, listen, first of all, I want to thank all of you folks and from the press for joining us this morning. I want to thank my colleagues for everything they do, and thank you for being here this morning. We have a lot going on, so glad to see so many folks. And our special guests that were here this morning, Ray, Allison, and Dave, thank you. Thank you very much. Listen, I'll end it with this. New York State is one of the top agricultural, not just in America, but across the world. We have the 5 best agricultural colleges all here in New York State. The best quality control, the best farmers, and 4 growing seasons. The fact that we have to stand here this morning and talk about something as ridiculous as this is what's wrong with Albany and what's wrong with New York City Democrats. It needs to end. We need to get to common sense, and we need to let people do their jobs. Thank you all for coming.